We welcome to the show Dominic Chianese. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great, Chris. I'm so happy that Richard contacted you and you contacted Richard because Richard and I have been doing a lot of things together lately. Uh, you know, for the last couple of years.
So you're over here in England at the moment, is that correct?
I've been here as a resident for 5 years. I'm a British resident now, but I've been coming off and on for 30 years. Hmm.
So you
Because my
must love our
wife,
country.
oh, I love it. I really do. I really do. I mean, New York City is a lovely urban place, but you've got everything here. You got New York and you got the country here. It's great.
So of course everybody knows you as Uncle Junior in The Sopranos.
That's
What are
true.
your memories from the show?
Well, the show itself was a highlight of my life, I would say, because if you talk about success in money terms, it was the first time I made any real money. So I can, I could buy things that I never could afford before. I could live a certain way. I could take my wife to, great dinners and things like that. So but the main thing was the crew itself and the cast, including David. We became very tight. We became very, very enamored of each other. It was like a family. The writing, as you know, was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, definitely. So when you got a script, was it exciting to read through the scripts?
Always, yes. We had table reads once a week, Chris. We at usually a Thursday. By Monday, we were starting and the script didn't change much, hardly at all, hardly at all. The table reads itself was like being in the play. There were maybe 30 people around a square table, and includes everybody, extras, and I've always I've always been enthusiastic about acting, and I was really on top of the world in a lot of ways because the company of David and the crew, especially Gandolfini, people like Nancy Marchand, uh, that was a real thrill for me, you know, real thrill. It was a complete extension, a natural extension from stage work. I did stage for theater for 25 years before I got my first movie, which was The Godfather. But it really was exciting, Chris. That's all I can say. It was the highlight. And hardworking, serious hard work.
Yeah.
And I really developed as a film actor on that, I think.
So you mentioned The Godfather. It was The Godfather Part Two you starred in alongside Al Pacino. Johnny Ola,
Yes,
wasn't it, I believe?
yes, he was a character. Uh, I was almost in Godfather 1, but I never went back for a second audition. I was too busy doing a play up in Boston. Uh, but Francis Coppola fortunately remembered me, and he knew I was right for the role. And then Godfather actually led to Sopranos because they were looking for somebody to play Uncle Junior, and they had trouble finding the right man at the right age who was a New Yorker and hopefully, Italian American. And one of the casting agents, Sheila Jaffe and Georgianne Walken, they were talking one day, and they couldn't find anybody to play. And Sheila said, "There's a man who was in Godfather too. I don't remember his name, but he must be about the right age now." So that's how I got the audition.
Brilliant. And of course, in the first two series of The Sopranos, Uncle Junior is really key to the story, isn't he?
Yes, I think he's always key. He's always on my nephew's mind because there was a great relationship there. Uh, and I think and since he was the boss of the family, so to speak, or he thought he was the boss, that led to repercussions in the script. I mean, you know, but you're right. The toward the end, he sort of almost fades out because he gets sick and they put him away somewhere. But they used Uncle Junior's ability to be a funny old man, kind of
Yeah.
comical, and so that's the best part I enjoyed. The fact that he was grumpy and had a good comic timing.
Yeah, I liked in the first series how you and Livia conspired to whack Tony Soprano
Yes,
in the nursing home. I thought that was brilliant.
yes, it's good writing, wonderful writing. And she was so easy to work with, and so was James. They were both extremely. I always felt like a better actor working with them. Really, they were so wonderful to work with, Chris.
Yeah.
It was like water off a duck's back. We never talked, we just did it, and we knew the characters and we had the privilege of having a character for a long time, which is unusual
Yeah, how
when
many
you
years
think
in
about it.
total was the show? Seemed like it went on for a very long time, over a decade
Yes.
or
Well, with the hiatus and everything was 10 years. Jimmy started at 35 years old. He finished when he was 45 years old.
wow. And
I was 68. I finished when I was 70.
he was another actor that made it late, didn't he, James Gandolfini?
Yes, yes. Well, he started late. Uh, he had done some things, but I would say he was acting maybe. He may have started around 30. And by the time he was 35, he was already, you know, but he was a leading man type. He was just wonderful in it. I can see you have a picture of him there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually the DVD box set. I thought I'd get them out. Yeah,
Oh,
old
good,
ones,
good.
but
I'm glad you got the box set because there's no commercials.
that's true. Yeah, very true.
Yeah, the commercials ruin the show. They really do.
And I
And
remember there was a real buzz when you'd watch it on the TV. You know, you'd have to be, I'm from England, so they'd show it later on, but whenever it was on, you'd have to watch it live.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the top five TV shows of all time. They claim in America, anyway. You know, but I can't expound enough on the value it had for me as an actor, what it did for me, not only financially, but my mother lived to see me reach success. She lived until 93. And my dad, unfortunately, didn't get to see that, but he did see me in The Godfather. And I grew up with a family in the Bronx. So to me, family was everything. It was very tight knit. I always wanted to please my family, always. There was
Yeah,
always I never really disconnected from my family, never.
that's brilliant. And a couple of scenes of yours I really liked as Uncle Junior. Don't know if you remember, but in the first series, you're getting your suit done, and the man who's tailoring your suit talks
Ah,
about his nephew or his son, about how he took one of these designer drugs, and then you take care of this guy who sold him the
yeah, I
drugs.
was really upset. I remember to feel that because Uncle Junior's character, was from the old school. They didn't like drugs. They hated drugs. Uh, they would have hated drugs in that time. And I could, yeah, I remember they used I remember the line he used, motherless F. Who was this motherless? I can't say the curse words. I never could. I was never a cursor. Cursing as a kid, but I cursed like crazy. And I got a call once from my aunt Rosie, and she was actually bawling me out. She was saying, "You can't. You never swore as a child." She was yelling at me over the phone.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I think The
but
Sopranos has the record, doesn't it, for the most amount of swear words? It
I think
must.
so. I think they did. Yeah. And as you know, it punctuates, and it's great on if you do it for a funny line or something. And Jimmy was so wonderful to work with. When they found out that I was, that I don't go down, I don't go down much anymore. He on the golf course, he did a thing with the golf club. Oh, I thought you liked sushi, Uncle. I didn't know you liked. I thought you were.
South of the border, wasn't it? Down Mexico way. I remember, yeah. Seen
Yeah,
the show
south of
a
the
lot.
border, right? Yeah. That's because I just insulted him a minute before that. He could have been a varsity athlete and you talk too damn much. Uh,
And it was funny with the character. He did kind of lose it near the end, but sometimes you thought perhaps he wasn't losing it and he knew what he was doing
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. Yeah. At the end, by the end, I think he's really lost it.
Yeah, the
But you
the
never
last
really know.
episode.
You never know. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah. Of course, I had to play it like I lost it, but can't play it like I was faking it.
and it was interesting when you got to the nursing home and you were doing the card game and you were sort of acting out like you would when you was in the criminal world, but
That's
you
right.
did.
That's
That
right.
was an interesting.
Yeah, I think that's the way. David's, I mean, his imagination was focused really, and yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, I was playing. I was being the boss of a family, you know. And when my Chinese friend attacks me, I deserved it probably from his point of view.
Yeah. So how did you first get the role as Junior Soprano?
I auditioned. They remembered Godfather, and I auditioned with David, and they called me back. And the first reading, I thought it was out and out comedy because I didn't know the whole script. And how I'm asking my sister-in-law to kill my own nephew, her son. I mean, you know, I thought it was crazy. I said, this either this is Greek tragedy or it's a farce or something. But when I read it as though it was Greek tragedy, you know. And David laughed. I remember he giggled, and actors are very keen to pick up the giggles of the people interviewing them. There was a real giggle. Yeah, he liked me very much.
Yeah, and even though you say at first you thought it was a comedy, it was, as you later on found out the story, it was very believable, wasn't it? That scenario.
Very believable. Yeah, and that I guess in the crime world that things have to be done that way. Yeah.
Like a Greek tragedy, really.
Oh, definitely. There's definitely the surprises, the elements of the dramatic surprise. It's like Sophocles' play, like you know, Oedipus Rex. All of a sudden, there's a denouement, and you realize what Oedipus realizes he was the one that caused it all himself. You know,
Yeah.
it's a good, it is Greek drama. Yeah, and it is, and David was very had a great dark sense of humor too. You know, he could make it. He can really be not cynical. He could be angry at something. These characters.
That was one of the great things about it, I thought, was the dark sense of humor in The
I
Sopranos.
think so. I think so. Yeah, yeah. When I think I always liked it when Tony Soprano says to his little AJ, he said, out there maybe it's 19, 1990 or 2000, but in this house it's 1950. He said if he
Yeah,
wants to act,
it's
he's
brilliant.
going to
Yeah.
obey the father at all, you know, because he was brought up under a tough father himself.
Yeah. And it was all very believable, wasn't it? I mean,
Oh, I think so. The details, every all the detail, and then you had an actress like Edie Falco. She did what Tony did for the male aspect. She did for the wife. She held that show together. She was so wonderful to act, and she would change right in front of your eyes. Wow. She was only half Italian. Her mother was a Swedish, and but she had that, and she was working on Oz at the time too, in another show. But she had that complete believability, and she had that uneducated Italian woman down pat, the wife of a mafiosi who really, has to toe the line, but I loved the way she had to put up with it. She didn't like it, but she did it.
I love that
And
episode where it's hard to watch, but it's amazing acting. It's James Gandolfini and Camilla, Eddie Falco, and they're splitting up at this point and they're arguing. It's so believable.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, by the end, when he punches through the wall, you think he's going to hit her. Yeah, because his jealousy comes up, and the fact that he's not the alpha male that he thinks he is, you know. Yeah. And of course, if he had known Furio was the object of her desires, he probably would have killed Furio.
Yeah.
He couldn't kill his wife. You know. That was a moment, wasn't it, when Furio could almost threw him in front of the airplane engine? You knew he was thinking about
Helicopter. Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah,
He thinks
helicopter.
about it at the last minute, doesn't
You
he?
could see he was thinking. That was something else. Wow. That was a moment.
It's great you know the show so well, because sometimes when you speak to actors when they're in films or TV shows, they don't necessarily, watch it back or they know a lot about it, but you clearly do.
Yeah. In Sopranos, the words are not spoken, but the action, that's what made it great. That's why the dialogue is so great. The dialogue is from actor to actor, but there was always the undertow there. The subtext was always powerful. And that was kind of sad that she fell in love with a real person who was a normal, quote, normal Italian, not a gangster, but he was a killer himself. He came from Italy. He was Neapolitan. They had their own mafiosis. Yeah.
He had to go into exile, didn't he? I remember.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what can you tell us about these events that you're doing? This sounds exciting.
The events are, I tell the story basically of my own rise to get success as an actor. And I think it's always interesting because there are so many detours and barriers and divorces and a lot of frustration, struggles. And the story is one of perseverance, I guess, but the people like it. So, and I find songs that sort of illuminate the actual event too. And my pianist, I have a wonderful music manager, Richard Walls, who you've talked to. He gets me. He finds the right audience, and I also want to do more singing for Alzheimer people and people in nursing homes. That was part of the story too, because when I was 50 years old, I had turned into a suburban American. I moved out of the city, and I would still do acting, but I would take my guitar, I'm a guitar player, accompaniment, and I would go into nursing homes, and I found it was a wonderful way. It made me very happy to give back to the community that way, because that's what I was meant to do anyway. Just I wanted to be a singer. I actually sang at the Tennessee, the Grand Ole Opry too. They gave me that opportunity. That was a great moment. But to sing to the elderly was a passion of mine, and I started a foundation for it, and I'm doing it here now too. I'm going to be doing care homes here in Surrey. I find it very rewarding for me personally, and it certainly helps the residents. I certainly do. It helps. Music is a great healer, Chris. Powerful healer.
And it's also, you remember songs from the past, don't you? If you haven't heard them, sometimes memories can come flooding back from that one song.
Oh, yes, it does. Yeah. And I know, I started when I was 50 years old, and all the people were 30 years older than me. Now I'm older than some of the people in the nursing home. So I know what songs fit. I'm working on, of course, the British elderly may know something that I don't know, but they all know Vera Allen, and they know, the British singers, and certain songs are popular all over the world. We're in Europe here. That's what I like about it. We're in Europe. It's a European sensibility, which is quite different towards an artist. I won't say it's like the Russians, but it's certainly not like the Americans. It's right in the middle somewhere. The Russians used to, deify their artists, but keep them under the thumb. And Americans, but here there's a true appreciation, I feel, I just thought that up. I like to make analogies.
No,
Sometimes I
that's a
think I
good
know what
one.
I'm talking about.
And you also sang on The Sopranos, didn't you? I believe that was the final
Yes,
episode of
that
series
shows
three.
David using the talents of his. He said to Stevie Van Zandt, who was a great performer himself. He said, Steve, take Dominic and just go in there and get something out of that song, you know. And he did. He made me really give it the song because I'm not really a recording artist specialty, but now I know in a record studio you can really go all out, you know. And it worked. It worked. Quoting Grata, every time I go to New York, they ask me to sing it in my own neighborhood.
It's
All the
great.
Italians, there's still some Italians left.
You
That's why he wanted people from New York, because we all spoke the same way. You know, we had the same kind of references towards criminals and racketeers. My father used to call them. My father would take me by the hand, as a child, bring me around the neighborhood and show me the stores and the doctors and the church and the priests and the friends. And then I would ask him, who are the guys with those hats, back in the 40s? He said, those were racketeers, he said.
wow. Yeah. So you saw this for yourself
Well,
when you
of
were
course,
young.
within a neighborhood, you always had mafiosi types around. Small percentage. They would hang out in one store or something like that. Actually, the store was right across the street from my house. There was a pastry shop. They'd all go there. They were well dressed, and they all benefited from the bootlegging that was going on in 29, 30s. These are the sons of the bootleggers.
Prohibition, yeah.
Yeah, prohibition. Yeah, they made a lot of money on that one. And my father was a bricklayer, but he knew the ropes. He knew what was going on, and he shielded me from. I never thought about doing that anyway. I wanted to be a singer.
Oh, really? What, like
I would,
Sinatra or?
because of Sinatra and all the singers, all the crooners. Yeah, I saw them as teenagers, and Tony Bennett, when he sang country songs, I love country music, and Tony Bennett sang. I said, "Wow, those guys can do it. Why can't I do it? Because I could sing." And I wanted to do musical comedies, and that's what I did for the first 10 years in show business, all musical comedies. I started with Gilbert and Sullivan, actually, which
Great.
was very good. Taught me to enunciate.
And as you mentioned, the crooners really could sing. I mean, I saw Tony Bennett years ago. Of course, he's sadly passed away now. I saw him at the Albert Hall, and he said that taxi drivers would often say to him that you crooners can't sing. And so he'd do this thing where he wouldn't use the microphone, and then you could hear it all around the Albert Hall, and it was amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a wonderful, wonderful singer. Yeah, he sang a Hank Williams song called Cold Heart in 1954, 55, I guess. And it was a major hit. People don't know that. They think he started with popular music. He sang Hank Williams, which is country music, but he gave it a special kind of treatment. And then when he said, I left my heart in San Francisco, I mean, he had that kind of voice.
Yeah.
Beautiful, high,
That's
almost a tenor.
so, as you mentioned, you starred in The Godfather Part Two alongside Al Pacino. What was Al
Yes.
Pacino like to work with?
Pacino was like falling off a log, like working with Gandolfini. He's right there with you. We did plays together too. I actually did a two-character play with him, and I learned from Al that the rehearsal period is very important, but it doesn't have to be 8 hours. If there's just two fellas, if you can do a lot in 3 or 4 hours and take a break till the next day. I learned because he followed a certain kind of procedure, and he learned a lot from the actor studio. And I used to hang around the actor studio too, and I learned how to relax finally. You cannot act if you're tense. You have to have full relaxation, which opens you up to complete concentration And the willpower is part of the talent, I think. The willpower to believe yourself, to believe yourself. It sounds easy, but it takes training, and training is important. That's what the method was all about, training. It wasn't a formula for acting. Everybody was starting to sound like Marlon Brando, which is kind of stupid, you know. Marlon Brando was Marlon Brando.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you could have been in the first Godfather. Do you remember what part you auditioned
Oh
for?
yes, yes. I had a long conversation with the. It was it was really my first movie in a sense. I only had one line in the movie once, uh, but it was my first movie, and Coppola spoke to me for about 35 minutes, I remember. And I had never spoken with a director before. Stage directors, stage casting is a completely different process. You audition with a script. He was just talking to me, and then he called me back, but I was in Boston, and I couldn't get back to New York, so that was he wanted me for Godfather One, but he remembered me for Godfather Two. Probably one of the traitors, you know. But it was even better for Godfather Two because by that time I had a long relationship with Pacino. We used to hang out together, you know. I knew his grandmother, and so it turned out well. It turned out great, Chris. I was
Yeah.
very lucky to be in both of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a side character, but you always remember him, don't you?
Oh, Johnny, oh yeah, because he was very pertinent to the essential to the discovery that Fredo is the brother, is a traitor, and it can happen. The brother, with the families, you know, Fredo, you know, wanted to be next in line, and he was overlooked, but he wasn't the type to be a leader.
Yeah. Brilliant films, aren't they? The
It's sad when
Godfather.
when they shoot him, he has to kill his own brother. That was hard to believe.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Greek tragedy, like you say.
Italian American culture. They had a wedding. There was always the grandfather would always get up and sing something in Italian, you know, to remind people that they're Italian Americans. You know, my grandfather would do that himself, or my father would ask me to get up and sing. You know, it was a cultural thing, especially the Neapolitans, because the Neapolitans had a history of uh, like Naples has talent. They had Piedi Grottas. They had feasts where they had competitions with songs. It goes back to the 1800s. They're, they're very big on popular songs.
Is that where your family is from then?
Yeah, my
Naples?
grandparents came from Naples, both sides, so they have that music in them, you
Hmm.
know, and that sense of show that dramatic sense too. They had, especially my mother's side, they were more musical than my parent. My father's side were more mechanical engineering, but it's a cultural thing. The
Yeah.
language itself lends it to, to to song. The language is so open. But yet the Welsh sing so great, and that language is full of consonants, isn't it?
Yeah.
But well, you know, I have a Welsh friend here. He sings great. Uh, but I only hope that I stay healthy and keep giving to the keep singing. I need an audience. Singers need an audience. You know, like Picasso needed a canvas. Singers need an audience because it's different when you have the audience, and that's why my events are very good. I have 100 or so people waiting to hear my story. I turn all the lights up. Nothing theatrical about it. It's just a man talking about his life, and you know, I enjoy it.
I'm sure you do. And of course, with Naples, that's the home of pizza, isn't it? I've been there once before on holiday. Um, when I was in Rome, I went over to Naples, and that's where the traditional pizza comes from, isn't it? Just
Yes, oh
tomato
yeah,
sauce.
yeah. Well, yeah. Pizza comes from Naples. They do make very wonderful pizza. I guess it's in the water and the way they have the ovens, but it's great, great pizza. My mother's side came from Sorrento. My father's side came from Naples itself, the city itself. And it's a wonderful tradition. But I got it from my grandfather. My father was born in America. So was my mother. They were both born in New York. They were the children of the immigrants. See, so I had the opportunity to follow the so-called American dream, you know,
And you
that
did.
started in the 50s. Right after the war, I was old enough. The Second World War ended, I was 14. And
Wow.
the first thing I remember was the atom bomb falling. So I think I took the right, it looks like I took the right profession.
Definitely. Yeah, you definitely did. And
Yeah.
with the character of Uncle Junior, did you base it on anybody in real life?
I think it just came from the patois, if you want to call it, the neighborhood. Somebody like my father had a way of somebody asked my father, "Hey Tony, what time is it?" He said, "Why, you got to take a pill?" You know, that kind of wisecrack. Somebody would say, "I'll see you later." He said, "Oh, not if I see you first." You know, that kind of thing. You know, they had a
Yeah.
sense of humor. It was That's the way they talked. He was street smart, very intelligent man, but he never had the opportunity to get educated because he was the first son of the immigrant. You know, he had to go to work at 15 years old, but he had the makings of an architect if he had the education, but he didn't. And my story is about my father's relationship with me, deciding to be a singer. He thought I was a little crazy. The odds of me becoming Frank Sinatra, you know, for making money, and he didn't want to be bothered with a son who was going to be looking for money. And he said, but he was there for me whenever I needed him. That's what that's what makes it a beautiful story. Even though
Great.
he never saw me act.
And what do you think was your best scene as Junior Soprano? It must be hard to choose one, but
It is hard. The one I was working late one morning. We were shooting. Well, overtime was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I remember being very very tired. And I've learned something because when you're very tired, you really relax. And that's a scene where I'm just walking back and forth. And Bobby Bacala says, "I'm in awe of you," because I was deciding who to go with. Should I stay with, you know? And I think that was the best scene. And at the time, I thought, let me get this thing over with. I got to go to bed, you know? That's
yeah,
when I learned something about that. Yeah, all the any tension at all, just you're tired. You can do that in the film. You can't do that on the stage, of course. But on films, if you're tired, you and you know the lines, that's all that counts. It'll come out right.
yeah. My favorite scene of yours was probably the last scene, although it was very sad, of course, in the nursing
Yeah,
home
I think
where,
that was my second favorite. When I saw it myself, and there was another one where Tony said, "Do you love me?" I didn't know it when I was doing some looping for that particular scene, and when I saw it, I was very surprised. I was very touched by it,
hmm,
and because sometimes you don't realize how powerful it is until you see the playback. But the last scene, I thought was powerful. You know, there was a certain thing in his eyes. You know, it was wonderful to work with Chris. You know, like I say, anybody else, I wouldn't have had half the commitment. But with guys like Jim, you commit. You know, because he held that show up. He held it up. The amount of lines he had was horrendous. He gave his life to that show.
definitely. Yeah, I mean,
So
I don't think anybody can imagine anybody else ever playing the part of
no,
Tony. No way.
he was Tony Soprano. And he walked away one time at an audition. He walked out. They chased him. Like, come back, come back. We want. He said, I'm not a leading man. You know, he was kind of a not shy, but he was a very humble guy. Jimmy, very humble. and he he took care of us too. If we needed anything, go to him, and he would talk to HBO, and we got it because they respected him. He was our leader. He had gone to HBO, and HBO said, "Okay, have a meeting and tell us what they want," that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we had a meeting, and people were asking. We all got at least 10 times more than we make. You don't make that much. They signed you to a 5-year contract at a very normal salary, but he decided he was going to put himself on the line for us. He was that kind of a guy, and they were making a lot of money. So
Yeah. I suppose when you first start a show, obviously they had no idea, you had no idea how big the show would be. So if you
no,
sign a contract, yeah,
even
things
David
change.
himself was, even the writer himself was completely shocked. It was a made a tremendous hit, as they said. People were just clamoring for it. They couldn't wait to see the next episode. In New York, all the restaurants would be cleared by 8 o'clock. They'd go home and watch it for Sunday night.
I know, it's
Came out a
amazing,
good.
isn't it? I don't think you get shows like that these days.
Well, no, they have a lot of reruns. I love the British comedies. I was very, very influenced by British actors back in the day. Claude Rains and Ronald Colman and Charles Lauren, Guinness, Ralph Reed, people. They really the big. I never thought I would be on a big screen. To be honest with you, I figured maybe television, but I never thought of it. But those men on the big screen really caught my attention. I learned a lot from them. The way they were so natural, especially Claude Rains. You never think of Charles Laughton. I saw Henry VIII. I saw the original Quasimodo, the Hunchback of Notre Dame. I don't know. You probably never saw the original. It goes back to the 30s.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Charles Laughton. I thought he was actually a humpback. I didn't think it was an actor. I thought it was really somebody. He was an incredible actor. And that stayed with me for years. But the singing and the acting, I had to learn how to act. Singing came natural, but I had to learn how to act because there is a process you have to have. You have to have a technique.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope this is interesting enough for people to identify with. People really don't know what an actor has to go through. Sometimes they think they always ask this, the sophomoric question: how do you remember all those lines? It's not about memory only; it's about more than memory.
And there's a lot that goes into acting, isn't there? I mean, I read James Gandolfini's book. Um, it was done after his death, and it said some of the procedures that he would do, like he'd put something sharp in his shoe if it was
Oh
like
yeah,
a hard
yeah,
scene where he had to be
yeah,
angry.
yeah. I heard that. Yeah, sometimes you can use that. You can use that. Yeah, I took out my teeth for the last scene.
Yeah?
Yeah, because that's good too. I knew that I was. He has no more vanity left at all. He's an old man now. I did a play one time, and my top was a comedy, thank God, because I forgot to put Fixodent in, and the top uh, teeth fell out, and the audience roared with laughter. Paul Newman happened to be in the audience. He came backstage and he says, "That's a good bit, Dominic. Leave it in." my teeth just flew out and teetered at the edge of the table. It was funny.
Yeah.
A lot of
Thank
nice memories.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, thanks a lot for joining us, Dominic. It's been fantastic to speak to you, Uncle Junior.
It was a real pleasure, Chris. Thanks a lot. I'll look for Chris Watts on the radio.
Thanks, Dominic. That's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much. I enjoyed our chat.